Hello friends! Today I'm doing my first story time. In honor of Valentine's coming up, I thought I'd share some stories of my terrible love life. Um, so as it's titled, Dating a Lying, Cheating Freak. So let's start with the freak. So, one of my friends talked me into joining a dating website, Plenty of Fish. So, I got a message from this guy on there, and he said that he just wanted to welcome me to the website and wish me luck, and tells me that he's like a tech manager or something for the website. And I was like, okay. So I didn't think anything of it. Didn't message him back or no. Well, no, I think I was being polite. And I told him, oh, thank you. And so he messaged me back and he's like, if you need any help with the website or anything, just let me know. I was like, okay. So I didn't think anything of it and I just let it go at that. Well, then he started messaging me and we were talking and stuff. Digo, you can't be up there. So he started messaging me more and we started talking and stuff. And so he tells me that he lives out here in Vegas. And I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. So we traded phone numbers and we started talking and texting and stuff. And I remember it was like in November because Thanksgiving was coming up. So at this point, we had been talking for, I don't know, maybe a week or so, and he wanted to meet. And I was like, okay. So it was like the day after Thanksgiving. So I was like, I'm going to be Little Miss Susie Homemaker. And I had some homemade pumpkin pie. I was like, I'm going to take him pumpkin pie. Come on, seriously? So I go meet him. Well, I tried to go meet him, and I just moved here to Vegas. I'd only been here a few months, and I got lost. And he's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm lost." And so he tells me that I told him where I was at, and he's like, "No, you're way out of the way." He's like, "Why? There's an Albertsons down there." He's all like, "Why don't I go meet you at the Albertsons, and then we can go meet up." From there, I think we were going to the Silverton or something. I don't remember. And I was like, okay. So I pull up into the Albertsons parking lot and I'm sitting there and he pulls up next to me. And so we get out and we introduce ourselves to each other and he gives me a hug and then he opens his car door and wants me to get in his car and go with him. And I was like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I said, we've only been talking. I really don't know you. And he's like, well, you got lost and it took too long, so I don't have time to go, for us to go out like we had planned. Which, I don't know. I was only maybe 15 minutes later than what I would have been. So I was like, okay, well, I get it, I understand. And so I gave him the pie and stuff. And he's like, well, wait, I wanna, sit and talk with you for a minute. Keep in mind, this is broad daylight, and we're sitting in a grocery store parking lot. I'm like, okay. So I didn't want him in my car. And he tells me, go ahead and get in his car. And I'm like, why can't we just stand here? He's like, come on, don't be silly, get in the car. And I was like, okay. I said, but I'm not getting all the way in. I'm keeping the door out and my legs out. And he's like, okay, that's fine. And so we're in the car and he starts telling me how beautiful I am and how pretty I am and rubbing my face and stuff. And then he starts going like this with his finger and trying to stick his finger in my mouth. And I pull away. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, why don't you suck on my finger? I'm like, done. Got out of the car, drove away, never talked to the guy again. Like, seriously, come on. So then, second one. This was when I had just moved here, and this is the cheater. So my sister and I were trying to find this building, and we had gotten completely lost. Dingo, he's licking my laptop. Don't. We got completely lost, and at this point we're starting to argue because I think it's further down the road. She thinks it's back, that we passed it. So we pull into like her apartment buildings, like a skyrise building place, and we pull over to the side, and we're sitting there arguing and trying to figure out where to go. And then my sister points, look, there's a booth, there's a security guard in the booth. She's like, why don't you go over there and we'll talk to him? I was like, okay. So I pull up and I tell him where we're going, and he's like, oh yeah, it's just a little further up that way. He's like, you're almost there. I was like, oh, thanks. So he's like, well, here, let me give you my personal phone number, my cell phone number. If you get lost, you could call me. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really nice of you. Thank you. So then we're driving, and my sister starts teasing me, and she's like, ooh, he likes you. He gave you his phone. I'm like, Danny, he was just being nice. Come on, be real. She's like, seriously, sister, if he didn't like you, he wouldn't have given you his personal number. He would have gave you the phone number to the booth. So I was telling one of my friends at work what happened. She said the same thing. And she's like, you should just call him and tell him that you wanted to thank him for the directions and that you had gotten there. I was like, okay. So I did this to despite them. Like, I was like, you know what? I'll call him. I'll prove both of you wrong. I'll call him and tell him thank you. Well, they were right. He asked me out. So I ended up getting sick, and I was like sick for 2 weeks. But he called me every day, several times a day, texting me. Like, we would talk on the phone for hours before he had to go to work for like 2 weeks, right? So I finally started feeling better, and we agreed to go on our first date. Well, I ended up getting sick again that night. So he's like, well, why don't I come over? I'll bring you some orange juice and stuff. Well, he knew I lived with my dad and my sister and my cousin and stuff. I was like, okay, he's not going to try anything with everybody here. Not thinking right sometimes, huh? So I go outside and I meet him, and we walked around my apartments for a little bit talking, and then we went into my house, and he starts asking me if I'll give him a back rub, and I'm like, no. He's like, well, why don't you let me give you a back rub? I'm like, no. I said, what? I'm starting to get uncomfortable. What if my dad wakes up and, and I guess it dawned on him that my dad was there. He knew, but I think it hadn't fazed him. And he's like, oh, well, I should go. I don't want your dad coming out here and getting mad and stuff. I was like, yeah, maybe that's a good idea. So then I quit hearing from him, so I let 2 days go by, and I texted him, and I was just like, hey, just wanted to say hi and see how things were going. He texts me back, and he goes, you know what, I have to be honest, I was only wanting sex with you. I have a girlfriend. What? Hello? That was a lot of time and energy you put into just trying to get some. Seriously, dude. And I was like, wow, that's messed up. He's like, I know. I felt I should just be honest with you because, talking to you the past 2 weeks so much, I see what a good person you are, and it's not right. I don't want to hurt you. I was like, well, I appreciate the honesty. Good luck to you. He goes, don't worry. I'm just an asshole like that. It could have been your sister. Oh, you say something nice and then follow it up with something like that. So I told him, don't worry, you could have never had my sister. So that was the cheater, okay? So we covered freak, we covered cheater, now the storyteller, okay? And this was a recent date I just had last spring. And this guy, he was really nice, very nice. Pulled out my chair, paid for my meal. He was a paramedic, and he had 1 year of school left before he became a lawyer. But his stories, I think he was just trying too hard to impress me. Because he was telling me crazy stories about, it's cracking me up. All you see is his face in the corner. He was telling me all these crazy stories about experience with ghosts at a bar, and how a ghost was buying him drinks at a bar, and how his friend had moved into a haunted house and he got into a fight with a ghost in the house. And then it was this whole thing about how when he was a kid in junior high, he went to a professional football game with his friend, and he went and told the coach, you guys are playing the game wrong and you need to do this and that and this and that. And so the coach was like, okay, I'll try your play. And his play ended up winning the football game, and now he gets tickets for life or something. I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? They could be true stories. I just think he was trying too hard. And the sad part was he was a really sweet guy. I really liked him. But the stories just didn't add up with me, and I don't know. I had a hard time buying a lot of it, and if I'm feeling I'm being lied to in the beginning, that's not gonna go anywhere. So that's some of my crazy dating stories. Dating in Vegas sucks. Hope you guys have a good Valentine's Day. Thanks for watching. Be kind to each other. Don't forget to hit the red button below to subscribe, and I'll see you next video.